this morning. There has been pressure mounting on Ms Mikakos to resign. Were you expecting this?
Well, I've been calling on the minister to resign months ago. I mean, she has overseen a litany of failures in her department. The contact tracing, the breaches in hotel quarantine in relation to infection control, the lack of PPE, all those basic things that should have been put in place haven't been. She's gone now. But only on Thursday, Daniel Andrews was backing her and said he had confidence in her. He threw her under a bus yesterday at the hotel inquiry. He wanted a scalp to make him look good. But honestly, he has got a lot to answer for. He has lied. He has actually made so many cover-ups or said so many cover-ups in relation to this whole dreadful situation where we've got hundreds of people have lost their lives and people are losing their livelihoods, their business are going broke, they won't reopen, people have lost their jobs, and he's still got his position. He says accountability stops with him. He needs to go too.
Well, that's, I guess, the next thing. Do you think others will go over this scandal?
Well, we had in this inquiry 10 senior bureaucrats that couldn't tell us who appointed the security guards in the hotel quarantine program. 3 ministers, including Minister Mikakos and the Premier. None of them knew. They all need to go. Jenny Mikakos is the first one. Well, as I said, she should have gone months ago for the failures in her department. But there have been failures throughout, across the government, and those ministers and the Premier need to go. Daniel Andrews, he needs to go next. He has overseen all of this, and for him to come out yesterday and to say, oh, well, you know, she's accountable. I thought that in April. It's now nearly October, for goodness sake. He stood by for all this time.
But we are in the middle of a global pandemic, so we are literally in the midst of this fight. If we get rid of the Premier, and I mean, even at the moment now we don't have a Health Minister, is that not only is that a bad look, but also who's going to be running the state then? How quickly can these new ministers get their head around a portfolio that they've never dealt with before?
Well, this is the problem. None of them have taken any responsibility. And Victorians are in this mess. No other state is. And the Premier, there are so many people that are despairing about the situation that they find themselves in. They've got no certainty by the Premier's commentary. Their livelihoods and their mental health issues that are just so profound are getting worse every day. We need confidence. Victoria needs hope. We need to ensure that we can steer our way through this because the virus isn't going away anytime soon. And we need confidence. We don't want this constant buck passing. And Victoria, we've got a no confidence motion in the Parliament. It'll be up to every one of those MPs in the lower house to really look at themselves and see, is this the right thing for Victoria?
Yeah.
With this Premier and these people in charge. And I hope they look at it very, very closely because Victorians are the big losers here. Every man, woman and child are going to pay the price of this government's mistakes for years to come.
The inquiry had heard that 99% of Victoria's second wave cases emanated from those security hotel quarantine issues. It's led to the death of 750 people. It's cost the economy some $12 billion and it's forced Melburnians into definitely the most draconian measures we have seen across the country. It seems to me, we've got high-tech systems in place. We have the most up-to-date medicine, the most up-to-date, platforms trying to fight this pandemic. It does seem like a very rudimentary mistake to have made, to have put that private security company and these people that have no experience on the front line of that.
Absolutely. I mean, the government's got to answer the questions. Who made the decision? We've had this inquiry, days of hearings and dozens of witnesses and senior bureaucrats, the senior ministers and the Premier, and still nobody can tell us who made the decision to put these security guards in place. I mean, Victorians just want the truth. They're sick of the cover-up. As you said, over 750 people have lost their lives. And the ongoing devastation and destruction to our state is really monumental. It's profound. Yeah. It's monumental, and it's not going to recover in the short to medium term. It's going to take years to recover from, and that is what's so heartbreaking: the loss of life, but the ongoing devastation to our state. And That's what Victorians want. They want confidence and hope. They just don't want these people to be passing the buck like they've done.
And we need to get to the bottom of what went wrong and how that happened. And that's obviously vital. But we can't go back in time now. It has happened. And the second wave took off. But I think it's important now to look ahead. And I mean, I know you're in opposition, but what do you think the best situation would be going forward in terms of like keeping in mind the stability that there needs to be someone governing that state amid a global pandemic?
Well, I'm very pleased that the federal government has stepped in and brought down the likes of Alan Finkel to sort out the contact tracing mess. I've been calling on that to be fixed for months. And look at New South Wales. They're jumping on every case, every outbreak. They're following up every case every day like
New
they should
South
be.
Wales did have as well its own scandal in the Ruby Princess cruise, and you could potentially put that down to luck that it didn't take off in quite the same way that it has in Victoria.
Well, don't forget that in New South Wales, the ADF were helping with the contact tracing back as early as early April. They had the systems, they had technology in place. Victoria has been using pen and paper and faxing results through to the department. There are still failures. We're nearly October. We've had such a widespread community transmission. The infection has spread because that contact tracing wasn't in place. Now, the government could have fixed that when they were approached in March to have the technology put in place to assist with this very vital component, and they refused to. It's only now in the last few weeks after the federal government stepped in to help Victoria. Yeah. And the federal government offered the ADF support early on. This government didn't take up that offer. All of those things, all of those monumental failures and oversights, because this government thought that they knew best, and they clearly haven't, and they wouldn't listen. And they didn't follow the example of other states like New South Wales who did have their problems, but they managed it and they've controlled it. And it's because of the failures that this government has overseen, the monumental failures, the cover-ups, and the lies that have come out of this government are a disgrace. And that's why I'm calling on the Premier to go as well.
So, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen, but if that was to happen, what would that look like? Don't you think that would create a more shambolic outcome?
Well, you've got chaos in the government anyway. You've got the left faction fighting the right faction. I mean, the health union came out and said on Thursday that the minister was clueless and incompetent. Then you had another union backing her. Then you had Trades Hall going no with the other union. So you've got all of this factional infighting that's occurring outside the parliament and also in the parliamentary team. Victorians don't care for that. They couldn't give a toss about that factional power play. What they want is confidence, and what they're getting. You know, Daniel Andrews was the socialist left factional player of Jenny Mikakos. They were best buddies. He threw her under a bus. But, you know, people don't care about that. They just want to get through this, and they want confidence, and they haven't got it in the Premier because his continual cover-ups and the monumental failures that he has been overseeing. They've had a gang of 8 of a cabinet that are all responsible here. They've lost one minister. Well, the rest of them should go as well. Seriously.
The resignation from Ms Mikakos, I'm sure that you've read that statement. She actually didn't resign because of this scandal. She said, in her words, that she resigned because her integrity was sought to be undermined. What did you make of that resignation letter?
Well, it's typical of the minister. She never takes responsibility. It's always somebody else's fault. You know, we'll see that in the parliament. It's blaming everyone, whether it's the federal government or, you know, the previous Liberal government from 30 years ago. I mean, it goes on and on and on. This is the problem. These people don't understand their ministerial responsibilities. And for her to say that this is again about their tit-for-tat squabbles in the factions, it's pathetic. You know, hundreds of people have lost their lives over these failures of this government. And this is what's so frustrating for people.
If you put your politics aside, put, you know, the divide aside, as a Victorian, are you hopeful now that we will have a new health minister come into the mix who perhaps can do a better job at taking care of Victorians? Well,
Victorians need a better job done. They just need to understand that that the Health Minister knows what they're doing. I mean, it was the Health Union that said she didn't understand the difference between clinical and non-clinical staff. That's a Health Union saying that. That's not me saying it. And Victorians deserve so much better than what they've had, so much better than this appalling government that has overseen the worst public policy decisions and administration in the history of our state and of any government in the nation, actually. And every Victorian is suffering, and in fact, every Australian is suffering because of this government's decisions. And Victorians deserve so much better than what we've had.
Well, it will be very interesting to see what happens in the next few days, certainly when the Premier Dan Andrews does stand up, which inevitably will be happening later today. I don't believe we have a time for that. But Shadow Victorian Health Minister Georgie Crozier, thank you so much for your time and for your insight this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.